Good morning and welcome to Oikos. I'm glad that you're with us, whether you're here in person or you're online as you listen, or whether you listen to this message maybe a week afterwards, or maybe you're in a car right now and you're listening. We pray that the Lord's words would affect your heart and would change you. We believe in transformation here at Oikos, and we believe that that transformation doesn't come because we will it from within, but because the Spirit of God rests upon you and changes you. And that is an awesome thing. And this is one of the stories that we're seeing with David as we go through 1st and 2nd Samuel. So today we're in 2nd Samuel and we're going over chapters 8, 9, and 10. But I'm only going to give you a preview of 8 and 9 because we really are just going to use 8 and 9 as kind of a catch-up into chapter 10, which will be our focus today. So as we go into the story of Samuel, Saul, and David, that's really 1st and 2nd Samuel, covers the lives of these three guys. Samuel is dead. He's been gone for years now. He anointed David. He said he would be the king. Saul has died as well. He was actually asked another guy to kill him because he was losing the war. And now David is left. David is trying to establish a kingdom that would be different than the rest of the kingdoms that they've seen, a kingdom that would follow God and represent him here on earth. And so this is where we are. David is faced with not only enemies surrounding this kingdom that he started, but he's also facing rebellion from within. He's also facing people who have lack of faith and not sure that this is the right way. And this is what David is facing as he establishes this kingdom here on earth that would follow God. So here's in 2 Samuel chapter 8, verses 5 and 6. When the Arameans from Damascus arrived to help King Hadadezer, David killed 22,000 of them. Then he placed several army garrisons in Damascus, the Armenian capital, and the Armenians became David's subjects and paid him tribute money. So the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. Now just think about this. David is trying to establish a kingdom. How important would it be that he was victorious wherever he went? Facing enemies from the outside, from the inside, facing people who are lacking faith, that this could ever be. So we move on to chapter 9. One day David asked, "Is anyone in Saul's family still alive? Anyone whom I can show kindness for David's sake?" So David's fighting these battles, trying to establish a kingdom. And remember Saul, what was he trying to do while he was alive? Kill David. I want you to look at the character of David. Someone that we would say, his heart is chasing after God. So what does his character do? He says, "Is anyone in Saul's family still alive? Anyone whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" So David inquires. He sends some servants out. They come back. They say, "Hey, we found someone. It's Jonathan's son, but it's a son who's crippled. Both feet are crippled." And remember, in Old Testament times, the theology or the belief was that if you were crippled, it was because you sinned or your parents sinned. That's why that issue or that challenge fell upon you. And not only should you be ostracized or sent away, but you should never be welcomed in. So there's something really significant happening here when David goes, when they find this crippled guy, this son of Saul, or grandson of Saul, son of David, that David says, "Not only are you my enemy, not only are you supposed to be banished from the community because you're full of sin, but I want to welcome you in. And what happens is he welcomes them in. He restores his wealth. He gives them land, provisions, all these kind of things. And then he actually welcomes him in to his dinner table daily. So not only does he welcome this enemy as a friend, but he makes him family. This is the character of David. As we go into chapter 10. So listen to chapter 10 as we kind of go through this. Think about these prior two setup chapters, 8 and 9, which is describing David is victorious wherever he goes. David's compassion rings forth that he showers goodness on enemies who are trying to kill him. Chapter 10. 2 Samuel chapter 10. Verse 1. Sometime after this, King Nahash of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun became king. David said, I'm going to show loyalty to Hanun, just as his father Nahash was always loyal to me. So David sent ambassadors to express sympathy to Hanun about his father's death. But when David's ambassadors arrived in the land of Ammon, the Ammonite commanders said to Hanun, their master, do you really think these men are coming here to honor your father? No, David has sent them to spy out the city so that they can come in and conquer it. So Hanun seized David's ambassadors and shaved off half of each man's beard, cut off their robes at the buttocks, and sent them back to David in shame. Don't you love the Bible? I mean, it's so straightforward. Here we go. When David heard what had happened, he sent messengers to tell the men, stay at Jericho until your beards grow out and then come back. For they felt deep shame because of their appearance. When the people of Ammon realized how seriously they had angered David, they sent and hired 20,000 Armenian foot soldiers from the lands of Beth Rehob and Zobath, 1,000 from the king of Maacah, and 12,000 from the land of Tob. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and all his warriors to fight them. The Ammonite troops came out and drew up their battle lines at the entrance of the city gate, while the Armenians from Zobah and Rehob and the men from Tob and Maacah positioned themselves to fight in the open fields. When Joab saw that he would have to fight on both the front and the rear, he chose some of Israel's elite troops and placed them under his personal command to fight the Armenians in the fields. He left the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, who was to attack the Ammonites. If the Armenians are too strong for me, then come over and help me, Joab told his brother. And if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will come and help you. Be courageous. Let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. May the Lord's will be done. When Joab and his troops attacked, the Armenians began to run away, and when the Ammonites saw the Armenians running, they ran from Abishai and retreated into the city. After the battle was over, Joab returned to Jerusalem. The Armenians now realized that they were no match for Israel, so when they regrouped, they were joined by additional Armenian troops summoned by Hadadezer from the other side of the Euphrates River. These troops arrived at Helam under the command of Shobach, the commander of Hadadezer's forces. Hadadezer's. It's a great name. When David heard what was happening, he mobilized all of Israel, crossed the Jordan River, and led the army to Helam. The Armenians positioned themselves in battle formation and fought against David, but again the Armenians fled from the Israelites. This time, David's forces killed 700 charioteers and 40,000 foot soldiers, including Shobach, the commander of the army. When all the kings allied with Hadadezer saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they surrendered to Israel and became their subjects. After that, the Armenians were afraid to help the Ammonites. Battle story. So today what we're entering in is an invitation to journey with David in war. So how does a king, how does a leader lead in war? In this story, what does this say about God? So I want you to think about that a little bit. I'm going to kind of lead us through. This portion, this chapter 10, even 8 and 9, you might, if you were like me, as I was kind of reading through this, I thought, well, I don't know how much it says about God. It says a lot about David killing. It says a lot about people shaving off half a person's beard and then cutting their robes to their butts and sending them off embarrassed. Great stories. It talks about David being victorious. But what does it really say about God? So one of the things I heard, and in fact, it's in chapter 8. If you look at this verse from verse 6. So the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. So this tells me that David's victories weren't because he was a great planner. It wasn't because he was a great warrior. It wasn't because he's brilliant. It wasn't because his army was larger. It wasn't because his country was more wealthy or prosperous or influential. It wasn't because he had better friends. It says that the Lord did it. The Lord made him victorious. And he didn't do it just in a few places. He did it, and this is striking, wherever David would go. I mean, who wants some of that? I mean, think about that. How awesome would it be to be made victorious wherever you go? Think about your life right now. How awesome would that be? Anybody want some of that? Be victorious wherever you go? I mean, if you don't, then you're not very competitive like I am, but that's okay. Of course, I mean, if you enter a race, you win, right? How awesome is that? You enter a competition, you're the winner. You win. You're victorious. You take a test, you get an A. I mean, can you imagine you walking in, take a test, done. You're working on a project at work, yours is the best. You're victorious. You start a new business, success. Victorious. I think about some of you guys in your careers who sell things. You walk in for a big sale, they buy everything. Victorious. You get cancer, cured. Victorious. Right? You stand up to a bully, you win. Victorious. This was what was happening with David as he secured the kingdom that was to follow God here on earth. God made him victorious wherever he would go. Now, this journey of war that David was on, it looks different for us. We're not trying to secure a nation today that follows after God so that we can establish his kingdom here. During David's time, the Lord was creating this people group so that from that people group, his son could be born. A son of David named Jesus, who would have victory wherever he would go. Enter facing hunger. He fed 5,000. Facing someone who was crippled, they could walk. He was victorious. Facing even death itself, he rose again in 3 days, victorious. Facing sin of the world, he took it on himself, victorious. He had victory over death. He had victory over sin. He had victory over devil. Nothing could defeat him. So his kingdom that Jesus entered in, this new kingdom is not a kingdom where we are going to face 22,000 guys and have to defeat them so that we can exist. In fact, Paul the apostle says in his letter to the Ephesians, he says a final word. This is Ephesians 6. Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against the strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. So this journey of war that David was on and what we're on may seem like completely different things, and yet they share characteristics. They share similarities. And we probably want these victories, right, in our own battles. But one of the questions that I have for you is that for David, his victories where he was victorious wherever he would go because God made it so. If you remember the rest of David's story, there was a lot more to his life. So are we willing to walk those same shoes or walk in those same shoes that David had? Are we willing to endure the hardship that David had? Think about the things that David faced to get to this point. It wasn't like David was just made king. Remember, Saul was trying to kill him. He was sent out of his country. He was banished. Do you want the same challenges to come before you? Do you want the sacrifices that David made? Would you allow your heart to chase after God in the good times, but even more so in the bad times? When you read through the Psalms, you hear David's heart, the ones that he was an author to, pouring out in the good times when he's giving thanks, but also in the bad times when he's still giving thanks. When he's saying, my heart is crying out to you, Lord. Where are you? Yet I will praise the Lord for all of my days. C.S. Lewis said, and this is loosely quoted, if you're looking for a comfortable life, Christianity is the wrong place to look. If you're looking for a comfortable life, Christianity is the wrong place to look. His kingdom is bigger than our lives here. There's a bigger, larger story that's occurring. And what's awesome and beautiful about it is that though we may face some hardships, though we may face trials, the victory is in Christ. We'll see some victories here. But there's a larger victory waiting for us that he's already won. So what does this chapter 10, say about people? Think about that. What did you hear about people as I read through chapter 10? And there's a lot here. So I'll kind of walk us through, see if this kind of came in your mind when you're listening to the story. What about Hanun? Do you guys remember Hanun? So Hanun, he was on the opposite side. Hanun surrounded himself with advisors who would give advice out of assumptions. So remember, David had sent messengers to Hanun to say, we're so sorry that your father died. We want to express our grief with you. and we want to encourage you. But his advisors, when Hanun's advisors heard that these people from David's kingdom were coming, they said, oh, he's just here to scout out the area so he can take over our country. So let's shame him. He reacted, so Hanun, he listens to these advisors that gave advice out of assumptions, not out of actual facts. He listens to them. He doesn't consult the Lord because he doesn't have a relationship with the Lord. So he relies on other people. And what he does is react out of spitefulness when he cuts the beards off. I mean, think about Stace. Would that be embarrassing? You have half your beard cut off. You can't do much about it. It's really important to have a beard in those days. So it's shameful to have it all shaved off. So these poor guys had half a beard. You didn't have a lot of clothes. You have one robe, and you're half naked. It's embarrassing. This is Hanun. And his army, then later, when he actually attacks David, they're not courageous. At the first sign of defeat, they run. If we look at Hadadezer. You guys say it so that I can feel like it's hard to say. Hadadezer. See, it's weird. His army also ran. They weren't courageous. Even when they're joined by the Ammonites, they had extra forces come in, and still they were scared. And their army was destroyed. Hadadezer just believed, if you see when he's fighting David, he goes, this force is too strong, so I'm going to consult a bunch of other kings. We're all going to join together, and then we'll defeat David. He believed if he just had more power, more men, more resources, he could be victorious. Maybe we can relate to that. How many challenges have you faced where you go, if I just had more money, if I just had more resources, if I just had more time, if I just. Again, Hadadezer did not have a relationship with the Lord. So he couldn't seek where actual power came from. So he sought it with other men. And he was defeated. Now let's look in contrast about David and Joab. What did they do? What did you hear about them? David shows respect. We see this when David said, I'm going to show loyalty to Hanun just as his father Nahash was always loyal to me. These were people trying to exterminate Israel. They had some deals brokered, but they weren't friends. And yet David would say, I'm going to show respect. Because this one particular person was very loyal to me. He also shows compassion. He tells the guys who have half a beard cut off and they're half naked, stay at Jericho until your beards grow out and then come back. For they felt deep shame because of their appearance. David's trying to win a war, but he's telling his people, stay, take care of yourselves. In modern language, that'd be like your boss going, you've had a really rough couple weeks, stay home. I have compassion for you. Rest until the time is ready for you to come back. Joab says to his men, be courageous. Let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. May the Lord's will be done. Now remember, in this battle, Joab was faced with an army on the front and an army on the back. Usually that spells disaster. But he said, we're fighting for something larger than ourselves. And we're also turning this battle not to our own plans, but may the Lord's will be done. Now, how does that relate in your own life? How many times did you face a challenge where you go, this is insurmountable, but may the Lord's will be done? Whether we lose today or win today, may His will be done. Now, in this story, chapter 10, where does it convict or encourage you? So what does it mean for you today? You heard this story, you heard me kind of talk about it. We didn't go really deep because we had 3 chapters. Is there any conviction? Is there any encouragement? Awesome. See, I wasn't even expecting anyone to say anything. But Kelsey, if you want to share, spit it out. To trust in the Lord. So think about how you'll use that this week. If that's the same thing that, if you share this with Kelsey, this truth, I can trust in the Lord this week. What will your week look like? What else does the story say? In conviction or encouragement for you? So hopefully I heard that right because I'm getting older, as you know, Dina. That the Lord is there to fight the battle with you. Oh, awesome. My hearing's still there. So the Lord is there to fight the battle with you. What does that look like for your week if you share that truth with Dina? Do you have something coming up this week that Sarah talked about, a fear in the confession, but love stomps out all fear. So if He's there with you, how does that look like when you face whatever challenge you have this week? How will your posture change? Will it be one of fear, that you're unsure about the results? Or will you have a posture of confidence that wherever you go, the Lord will make you victorious? And I'll put in the last part, eventually. We know we're already victors. We will lose some battles, but the war's already been won. So we know eventually we will be victorious. And He's with you. Anything else? I'm going to run through a few things I thought about. See if this connects to you. I wonder, as a person or as a father, am I respectful to my enemies like David? Am I respectful enough to say, how can I share kindness to someone of their family? Am I respectful enough to say, let's honor this person? Do I leave my home seeking the will of God? And this connects to you, Dina. Do I trust that He goes with me wherever I go? Am I encouraged that it isn't the size or power of the opposing force or challenge that determines whether the Lord will make me victorious? Gosh, do I look at things when I feel overwhelmed and believe that the Lord can still make me victorious? Or am I more like Hanun? And I go, if I don't have enough people with me, I'm going to lose. If I don't have enough resources, time, talent, I'm going to lose. Or do I believe that I can be victorious in any circumstance when it's the Lord's will? Do I believe that victory is determined according to His will and His will alone? Or do I think I have to do something? Do I have to make it happen? Do I believe and live like God is more powerful than the meanest, biggest, baddest enemy? So perhaps I'm convicted of my lack of faith. Many times when you have overwhelming odds or impossible odds, maybe you're like me and your prayers lack a little faith. Maybe you're like, oh yeah, God, you're supposed to be with me and you could make this happen, but it looks like it's not going to happen. So I'm praying that you'll help me, but honestly, I know it's probably not going to happen. Have you had prayers like that? Or do you pray with confidence that, man, if it's in His will, then it's bringing about His kingdom. And if it's bringing about His kingdom, He'll make it happen. Can I have confidence in that? And that even in the times when I'm losing, when it seems like I'm losing, the Lord is bringing about victory. Okay, so what are some of the challenges in your life that you may believe it's beyond God to make you victorious? What I want you to kind of do is do a mental note and write down some of those things in your mind. Not all of them, because we have multitudes. I mean, it can be anything from, I'm trying to lose weight and I've never been able to lose weight. Or I'm trying to get healthy again, I can't get healthy again. Or I'm trying to be financially secure and I'm completely in debt. Or I'm trying to be a better mom and I don't put enough effort into it. Or I'm trying to be the number one person at my job, but I don't do very well. Or I'm trying to be more generous, but honestly, I'm scared to give away any money. It could be any of those. Where are you facing those challenges that you may think it's beyond God to make you victorious? What I want you to do is go through one or two or three of those, put those on your list, write them down, and then each day share a truth that you heard today as you look at it. So if it's, I don't think I'll ever lose weight. I mean, it's a minor thing, right? But it can be a major thing for some. Put it down and go, Lord, I'm asking you to make me victorious in this. I believe you'll go with me on whatever diet I go on. I believe you'll go with me on whatever exercise I try to do. I believe you will go with me and make me victorious. Maybe it's on financial security. Lord, on starting a savings account, I believe you will go with me and help me trust I can do this. I'm being generous. Lord, I believe as I give money away that you are the great provider. I can give and I can never outgive you. Write down these things and let the Lord begin to transform your mind on what you believe. If you believe that you cannot be victorious in something, write it down and ask the Lord to help you move towards victory. Now, this is not a self-help thing, so I may say, Lord, I want to be victorious in a marathon, and I want to make sure that I run the marathon under 2 hours. I'm going to be very specific, make me victorious in that. Well, there's this little thing that God says, according to my will. So can I relent that I may not see victory on this side of the earth in that? But I do believe that when I'm in heaven, I'm going to be able to run an under 2 hour marathon if I want to. Yes, Marcia? Yes, yes. Our bodies remember the victory that's waiting for us is perfection. What we see now is a mere glimpse. So if you run a 10-hour marathon, you may not be all that victorious. But he's going to shift it. If you are wishing your body was more healthy, when Jesus comes again, your body will be completely healthy. This is a victory that's waiting us. We get glimpses of it now. But in the final days, we'll see that fullness of victory. No more disease. Complete victory. So, from these truths that have been shared, it isn't just about us. You have people in your life who are facing challenges and doing things that they're scared about. What can you share with them that you heard today? So I want you to think about those things. Who in your life needs to hear something about who Jesus is in their life today? That God goes with you wherever you can go, wherever you go. That God, according to his will make you victorious, give you victory. That he's encouraging us to be respectful and loving. What truth do you need to hear? Does your friend or family member need to hear? So God has heard all these things. They've gone through your mind. We may not have said them out loud. Perhaps there's some things that you're going, I think God will help with that, but I don't think God really cares about these things. I want to challenge you today and remind you that you didn't do something or become someone and then God said, I'm going to love you. He didn't say, I'm going to give you victory because you did A, B, C, and D. He said, I'm going to give you victory because I've already loved you. I've been waiting for you to receive it. I'm going to give you victory because you're worth it. Now, this victory, again, is according to his will. And this is the confusing thing, because what we want isn't always according to his will. So, me wanting to run a sub 2-hour marathon is maybe not according to his will. That's okay. And it may have nothing to do with his kingdom. So I can pray for that all day long, and the Lord may go, oh, sweet child, Aaron, it's not going to happen. But if it is for his kingdom and in his will, it absolutely will. So the Lord, what we're asking for the Lord to do is open our eyes to his kingdom so that we can push towards those things. Not the things that we just want, but the things that are for his kingdom. And then all of a sudden you're going to see that the things that you want start to align with the things that are in his kingdom. And maybe I'll not care about running a sub 2-hour marathon. Maybe I'll care more about loving my enemy. But the awesome thing about God is that he knows in my heart I want to do some things that maybe are inconsequential to his kingdom. And sometimes he still does that. Isn't that cool? Because he's like your best parent ever, who understands some of the things that you want, and he also totally understands what you need. And when the things that you want line up with what's best for you, he will give it to you. We just can't see it all. So in this journey of war, we are fighting against not flesh and blood, but the unseen powers. And so all the challenges that you're facing, you are fighting against things that you cannot see because you're his people. But he goes with us wherever we go. And I do believe against the unseen powers, he gives us victory day in and day out. Receive this blessing. Lord,